Success is often portrayed as a single, explosive moment, a lightning strike of inspiration, or a sudden, heroic effort that changes everything. We love the myth of the overnight success because it allows us to believe that greatness is a gift granted to the lucky few. But the truth is far more quiet and, in many ways, far more intimidating. The reality of transformed life is built in the shadows, in the small, seemingly insignificant choices that we make when no one is watching. It is found in the 1% improvements that are so tiny they're almost impossible to notice in the moment. This is the world of atomic habits. These are the small wins and tiny breakthroughs that, when layered upon one another over time, create a compound effect so powerful it can reshape the very fabric of your existence. Consider the story of the British cycling team. For nearly a century, they were the laughingstock of the professional racing world. They had won only a single gold medal in 76 years and were so mediocre that top bike manufacturers refused to sell them equipment, fearing it would damage their reputation. Then came a man named Dave Brailsford. He didn't look for a radical overhaul. He looked for the aggregation of marginal gains. He searched for a 1% improvement in everything the team did. They redesigned the bike seats for comfort, rubbed alcohol on the tires for better grip, and even searched for the best pillow and mattress so the riders could have a slightly better night's sleep. Individually, these changes were laughable. Collectively, they were a revolution. Within 5 years, the team dominated the Tour de France and the Olympic Games. They didn't find a secret weapon. They simply mastered the math of small gains. The problem most of us face is that we expect progress to be linear. We believe that if we work hard today, we should see a result tomorrow. When the result doesn't manifest, we feel a deep sense of frustration, and we abandon the habit altogether. This is a valley of disappointment. You are doing the work. You are putting in the reps, but you haven't yet crossed the critical threshold where the results become visible. Think of an ice cube sitting on a table in a room that is 26 degrees. You heat the room up degree by degree. 27, 28, 29. Nothing happens. The ice cube sits there, unchanged. Then you hit 32 degrees. Suddenly, the ice begins to melt. A 1-degree shift, no different from the ones before it, has unlocked a massive phase change. Your habits work exactly the same way. The breakthrough moment is often a result of many previous actions, which build up the potential to trigger a major shift. We are so focused on our goals that we forget to look at our systems. A goal is the result you want to achieve. A system is a process that leads to those results. If you are a coach, your goal might be to win a championship, but your system is the way you recruit players, manage your assistant coaches, and conduct practice. If you ignored your goals and focused only on your system, would you still get the result? The answer is almost always yes. Goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress. When you fall in love with the process rather than the product, you don't have to wait to give yourself permission to be happy. You are successful every time your system runs. This is a shift from being a goal setter to being a system builder. It is the difference between a life of constant striving and a life of steady, inevitable growth. This book is not about hacks or shortcuts. It is about the architecture of human behavior. It is about understanding the 4-step loop that governs everything you do: cue, craving, response, and reward. Every habit you have, whether it is picking up a cigarette or picking up a book, follows this same neurological path. By learning to manipulate these 4 stages, you can design a life that makes good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. You can stop fighting against your own willpower and start working with the grain of your own biology. We are going to explore how to make your desired behaviors obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. We are going to dismantle the plateau of latent potential and discover how to stay on the path when the initial excitement fades. Imagine a version of yourself a year from now. You haven't made any giant leaps, but you have stayed consistent with a few atomic habits. You have improved by just 1% every day. By the end of the year, you will be 37 times better than you are today. That is the power of compounding. It is a slow, steady burn that eventually turns into a bonfire. This script will show you how to start that fire, how to keep it burning when the wind blows, and how to eventually become the person you have always dreamed of being. The mountain of your life is not climbed in a single bound. It is climbed one small, deliberate step at a time. Welcome to the world of atomic habits. Let's begin the ascent. We often think of habits as things we do, but they are more accurately described as things we are becoming. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. This is why small habits matter so much. They provide the proof that you are a certain kind of person. If you make your bed every morning, you are casting a vote for the identity of an organized person. If you write one paragraph, you're casting a vote for the identity of a writer. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. This shift of focus from a distant, intimidating achievement to a small, manageable choice in the here and now. The reason it is so hard to build new habits is that we are constantly fighting against the friction of our environment. We believe that we need more willpower or more motivation, but motivation is a fickle friend. It shows up when things are easy and disappears the moment you are tired or stressed. Willpower is like a muscle. It gets fatigued throughout the day. If you rely on willpower to make good choices, you are destined to fail when life gets difficult. A much better strategy is to design an environment that makes your good habits inevitable. If you want to drink more water, place a bottle on your desk, in your car, and on your bedside table. If you want to stop checking your phone first thing in the morning, leave it in another room. You don't need to be stronger than your environment. You just need to be the architect of it. Most of us live our lives in a state of reactive management. We react to the notifications on our phones, the demands of our bosses, and the whims of our friends. We are like leaves blowing in the wind, moving in whatever direction the world pushes us. Atomic habits allow you to step out of this reactive cycle and into a state of intentional design. You begin to see the invisible cues that trigger your behaviors. You notice that you always snack when you sit on a certain chair, or that you always feel stressed when you walk through a certain door. By becoming aware of these cues, you gain the power to change them. You are no longer a victim of your biology. You are the master of your routine. This is the first law of behavior change. Make it obvious. The tragedy of the human condition is that the rewards for bad habits are immediate, while the rewards for good habits are delayed. A cigarette provides an immediate rush of dopamine, but the lung cancer comes decades later. A workout is exhausting and painful in the moment, but the health benefits take months to show up. Our brains are wired to prioritize the now over the later. This is why we struggle to stay on the path. To overcome this, we must learn to bring a small piece of the future reward into the present moment. We must find ways to make our good habits satisfying immediately. This is the fourth law. Make it satisfying. It is the secret to making a habit stick when the initial excitement has worn off and the long-term results are still over the horizon. As we move through this script, I want you to stop thinking about the big win. I want you to stop obsessing over the finish line. Instead, I want you to focus on the trajectory. It doesn't matter how successful or unsuccessful you are right now. What matters is whether your habits are putting you on a path toward success. You should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than with your current results. If you are a millionaire but you spend more than you earn every month, you are on a bad trajectory. If you are broke but you save a few dollars every week, you are on a good trajectory. Your habits are the leading indicators of your future. Your net worth is a lagging indicator of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging indicator of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging indicator of your learning habits. You get what you repeat. This is a promise of the atomic approach. It is a way to stop fighting yourself and start building a life that works for you. It is about understanding that the most powerful things in the world are built from the smallest pieces. A forest is built from individual seeds. A skyscraper is built from individual bricks. Your life is built from individual habits. We are going to take the complexity of human behavior and break it down into its simplest, most powerful parts. We're going to show you how to build a system that works, even when you are tired, even when you are stressed, and even when you feel like giving up. This is the science of small wins, and it is the only way to achieve results that actually last. We often think of progress as a linear climb, a steady diagonal line moving upward toward our goals. We expect that for every unit of effort we put in, we should receive an equal unit of results in return. But the reality of change is far more deceptive. When you start a new habit, you're often met with a period of complete stagnation. You go to the gym for 3 weeks, and your body looks exactly the same in the mirror. You study a language for a month, and you still can't understand a basic conversation. This is the plateau of latent potential. It is a period of time where your work is being stored, not wasted. Much like a bank account that compounds interest silently, your habits are building up the energy necessary to trigger a massive shift, even if you can't see the numbers moving yet. The danger of this plateau is that it creates a profound sense of discouragement. Most people quit in this valley because they believe their efforts are not yielding fruit. They don't realize that they are simply in the middle of a phase change. Imagine a piece of coal being pressed under immense weight. For a long time, it looks just like coal. Then, at a specific point of pressure and temperature, it becomes a diamond. The pressure applied on the last day was no more significant than the pressure applied on the first day. But without the cumulative weight of all those days, the transformation could never occur. Your habits are the pressure. Every time you show up, you are adding to the internal heat of your transformation. You are not failing. You are ripening. The reason we struggle to stay consistent during this period is that we are obsessed with goals rather than systems. A goal is a destination, but a system is the vehicle that takes you there. Winners and losers often have the exact same goals. Every athlete wants to win the gold medal. Every job seeker wants a position. Every entrepreneur wants to build a successful company. If the goal were the secret to success, then everyone with that goal would be successful. The difference lies in the systems they build to support that goal. When you focus solely on the goal, you are only happy when you reach the finish line. When you focus on the system, you can find satisfaction in the process itself. You are successful every time you stick to the routine. Systems provide a level of stability that goals can never offer. A goal is a binary state. You have either reached it or you haven't. This creates a yo-yo effect where, once the goal is achieved, the motivation disappears and the person slides back into their old behaviors. This is why many people stop running after they finish a marathon. The goal is a finish line, and once crossed, the reason for the habit vanished. A system-based approach, however, is about the long-term cycle of refinement. It is about becoming the kind of person who runs, regardless of whether there's a race on the calendar. You are building a life that is designed for perpetual growth, not just a one-time achievement. To navigate the plateau of latent potential, you must learn to fall in love with the boredom of the work. Real progress is often incredibly boring. It is the same workout, the same healthy meal, the same writing session, day after day. In a world that thrives on novelty and instant gratification, the ability to stay consistent with the mundane is a superpower. You have to stop looking for the hit of a big result and start looking for the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. You are building the foundation of a skyscraper. For months, it looks like a hole in the ground, but once the foundation is set, the building rises faster than anyone expected. Your habits are that foundation. The math of 1% improvement is the ultimate antidote to the discouragement of the plateau. If you can find a way to be just 1% better today than you were yesterday, it may seem insignificant, but that 1% compounds. It is like a pilot changing the heading of a plane by just a few degrees. When leaving Los Angeles for New York, if the pilot shifts the nose of the plane just 3.5 degrees south, the plane will end up in Washington, D.C. instead of New York. In the beginning, the shift is invisible. By the end of the journey, you are in a completely different city. Your habits are the degrees of your life's heading. A small change in your daily routine can lead your life to a completely different destination. We must also confront the false hope syndrome. This is the belief that a massive change can happen overnight if we just find the right secret or the right hack. This belief is what fuels the multi-billion-dollar industries of fad diets and get-rich-quick schemes. It preys on our desire for the shortcut. But the mountain of your life has no elevator. There's only the stairs. When you accept that the plateau is a natural part of the process, you stop looking for the shortcut and start focusing on the next step. You realize that the work you're doing now is not being lost. It is being stored for the moment when the ice finally melts. This chapter is a call to radical patience. It is an invitation to stop judging yourself by your current results and start judging yourself by your current trajectory. Are your habits putting you on a path to the person you want to become? If the answer is yes, then the plateau is not your enemy. It is your training ground. It is where your character is forged. It is where you prove to yourself that you are the kind of person who shows up even when it's hard, and even when no one is clapping. You are building the potential energy of your future self. Keep heating the room. The phase change is coming. One of the most profound struggles of the plateau of latent potential is the isolation that comes with unrewarded effort. We live in a world that only celebrates the highlight reel. We see the athlete standing on the podium, the author holding the finished book, or the entrepreneur ringing the bell on the stock exchange. We rarely see the thousands of hours spent in the dark, performing the mundane tasks that made those moments possible. When you are in the middle of your own plateau, you feel like you are working in a vacuum. Your friends might ask why you are still going to gym when you don't look any different, or why you are spending your weekends studying when you haven't received a promotion. This social friction is often more dangerous than the physical exhaustion. It is the pressure of a world that demands instant proof of your progress. To survive this stage, you must understand the concept of lagging indicators. Your current results are almost never a reflection of your current habits. They are a reflection of your past habits. Your physical fitness is a lagging indicator of your eating and exercise habits from 6 months ago. Your bank account is a lagging indicator of your financial decisions from the last year. Your knowledge is a lagging indicator of your reading habits over the last decade. We often try to change the results without changing the habits, which is like trying to change the image on a movie screen by touching the screen itself. You have to go back to the projector. You have to go back to the source. When you accept that there is a time delay between your actions and your outcomes, the silence of the plateau becomes less intimidating. This delay is actually a form of protection. If every bad habit resulted in an immediate catastrophe, we would never survive long enough to learn. If one cigarette caused instant heart failure, no one would ever smoke. If one missed workout caused immediate muscle atrophy, we would live in constant terror. The delay allows us the grace to make mistakes, but also requires us to have the foresight to stay on the path when the rewards are not yet visible. You are essentially building a reservoir of potential. Every day you stick to your system, you're adding another gallon of water to the tank. To the outside world, the tank looks empty because the water level hasn't reached the outflow pipe yet. But the moment it hits that pipe, the results will pour out with a force that looks like an overnight success to everyone who wasn't watching you fill the reservoir. The greatest threat to long-term success is not failure, but the boredom of the middle. We are wired for novelty. Our brains crave the hit of dopamine that comes with a new project or a fresh start. This is why many people are startup specialists, but finish line failures. They love the first week of a new habit when the excitement is high and the possibilities feel endless. But once the novelty wears off and the habit becomes a routine, the ego begins to rebel. It starts to look for reasons to quit. It tells you that this isn't working, or that you've done enough for today. Staying on the plateau requires you to cultivate a relationship with the mundane. You have to find a way to fall in love with the reps themselves, regardless of the outcome. You have to find the beauty in the rhythm of the work. This is where the shift from what I do to who I am begins to take root. On the plateau, you are forced to define yourself by your commitment rather than your trophies. If you only see yourself as a winner when you win, you'll be a loser for 99% of the journey. But if you see yourself as a person who never misses a practice, you are a winner every single day. You are casting votes for a version of yourself that is reliable, disciplined, and resilient. These internal votes are far more valuable than the external rewards because they cannot be taken away from you. When the breakthrough finally happens, and it will, you won't be surprised because you have already been living as that person for months. The mountain is not conquered at the peak. It is conquered in the quiet, steady steps of the ascent. Most people who attempt to change their lives begin by focusing on what they want to achieve. They set a target for a specific weight, a specific salary, or a specific accolade. This leads to outcome-based habits. The problem with this approach is that it is fundamentally external. You are trying to change the results without changing the person who produces those results. It is like trying to paint a decaying house. The exterior might look fresh for a moment, but the structural rot remains underneath. To achieve results that stick, you must move deeper. You must move past a layer of outcomes, and even past a layer of processes, down into the bedrock of your identity. You must stop focusing on what you want to achieve and start focusing on who you wish to become. Identity-based habits are the ultimate secret to long-term consistency because they align your behavior with your self-image. When your behavior and your identity are in conflict, you will always lose. You can force yourself to go to the gym for a few weeks through sheer willpower, but if you still believe you are a lazy person who hates exercise, your brain will eventually find a way to return to its baseline. Your self-sabotage is simply your mind trying to bring your reality back into alignment with your beliefs. True behavior change is not about doing something new. It is about becoming someone new. It is a difference between saying, "I'm trying to quit smoking," and saying, "I'm not a smoker." The first person is still a smoker trying to behave differently. The second person has fundamentally altered their identity. The process of building a new identity is not a matter of faking it until you make it. It is a matter of believing it because you proved it. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. This is the two-step process to changing your identity. First, decide the type of person you want to be. Second, prove it to yourself with small wins. If you want to be a healthy person, every time you choose an apple over a candy bar, you are casting a vote for that identity. If you want to be a productive person, every time you sit down to work for 15 minutes instead of scrolling through your phone, you are casting a vote. No single vote will change the election, but as the evidence builds up, the old identity begins to crumble and the new one takes its place. We are often trapped by the labels we have inherited from our past. We tell ourselves, "I've never been good with numbers," or "I'm just not a morning person," or "I always lose my temper when I'm stressed." These are not objective truths. They are just stories we have repeated so many times that we have started to believe them. Every time you repeat these labels, you are casting a vote for your old, limiting identity. To break free, you must start casting votes for a different story. You have to realize that you are not a finished product. You are a work in progress. Your identity is not set in stone. It is an ongoing tally of your daily habits. You can choose to change the tally at any moment by simply changing your next action. This shift in focus from outcomes to identity provides a profound sense of psychological relief. When you are chasing an outcome, you are constantly in a state of not enough. You are only successful when you reach the finish line. But when you are building an identity, you are successful every time you cast a vote. If your identity is, "I am a runner," then you have won the day the moment you lace up your shoes and step out the door, regardless of how fast or far you go. You are no longer performing for a result. You are simply acting in alignment with who you are. This creates a sustainable loop of positive reinforcement that makes the habit feel like a natural expression of your soul rather than a chore imposed by your ego. The reason most people fail at this stage is that they try to change too much at once. They want a total identity overhaul in a single weekend. But identities are not built through massive heroic efforts. They are built to the quiet accumulation of small, consistent actions. This is why atomic habits are so effective. A tiny habit, like writing one sentence or doing one push-up, may seem insignificant from an outcome perspective, but it is incredibly powerful from an identity perspective. It is a tiny, undeniable piece of evidence that says, "I am a writer," or "I am an athlete." These small wins are the bricks with which you build the fortress of your new self. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to win the majority of the votes. Think of the internal dialogue that changes when you move to identity-based habits. The person who is trying to quit a bad habit is in a constant state of internal struggle, saying, "I shouldn't do this, but I want to." The person who has changed their identity simply says, "That's not who I am." There is no struggle because there is no conflict. When you truly believe you are a certain kind of person, you don't need motivation to act like that person. It becomes a path of least resistance. You are no longer fighting against the current of your own self-image. You are flowing with it. This is the ultimate destination of behavior change, a state where your good habits are no longer something you do, but a reflection of the person you have become. The shadow side of identity is that once we have adopted a label, we become fiercely protective of it. This is why it is so difficult to break a bad habit that has become intertwined with how you see yourself. If you view yourself as the life of the party, you'll find it nearly impossible to stop drinking, even if you know it is destroying your health. Your brain perceives a loss of the habit as a loss of the self. You are no longer just giving up a substance. You are giving up a piece of your history. This is why identity change must be handled with the precision of a surgeon. You aren't just cutting away a behavior. You are carefully grafting a new belief onto your soul. You have to give yourself a reason to be proud of the new version of you that is more compelling than the comfort of the old one. Pride is the ultimate fuel for identity-based habits. When you do something out of a sense of obligation, you are constantly looking for a reason to stop. But when you do something because it is a reflection of your pride, you will fight to keep it. If you are proud of the size of your biceps, you will never miss an arm day. If you are proud of the clarity of your writing, you will never miss a day of editing. The more pride you have in a particular aspect of your identity, the more motivated you will be to maintain the habits associated with it. This is why the small wins are so crucial. They aren't just progress markers. They are hits of pride that reinforce the new identity. Every time you cast a vote, you are telling yourself, "This is who I am, and I am proud of it." We often underestimate the power of social identity in this process. We are social creatures, and much of our identity is tied to the groups we belong to. If you belong to a group of friends who value fitness, being a runner isn't just a personal choice, it's a ticket to belonging. Conversely, if you are trying to become a reader but all your friends spend their time mocking intellectual pursuits, you will feel a constant, invisible pull to return to the pack. This is the social gravity of identity. To make your habits stick, you often have to find a new tribe, a group of people where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. When your identity is reinforced by the people around you, the habit becomes effortless. You aren't just changing yourself, you are changing your world. The ultimate goal of this two-step process is to reach a state of cognitive harmony. This is the point where your actions and your beliefs are in perfect alignment. There is no more internal friction, no more negotiating with yourself in the morning about whether or not to do the work. You do the work because that is what a person like you does. It becomes as natural as breathing. This is how you achieve results that last for decades rather than weeks. You have moved beyond the plateau of latent potential because you are no longer chasing a result on the horizon. You are inhabiting a reality in the here and now. The mountain is no longer something you are climbing. It is the ground you stand upon. This chapter serves as a reminder that you are the architect of your own character. You are not a finished painting. You are the artist with a brush in your hand. Every morning when you wake up, you have a fresh set of ballots. You can choose to vote for the person you have always been, or you can choose to vote for the person you have always wanted to be. The choice is found in the smallest details, the atomic moments of your day. Don't worry about being perfect. Just worry about being the person who wins a majority of the votes. Build the evidence, and the identity will follow. Build the identity, and the life you've dreamed will become your inevitable reality. Every action you take, from the moment you open your eyes in the morning to the second you drift into sleep at night, is governed by a hidden feedback loop that operates beneath the surface of your conscious awareness. This is a habit loop, a neurological circuit consisting of 4 distinct stages: the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. To the untrained eye, human behavior looks like a chaotic series of random decisions, but to the behavior scientist, it is a perfectly logical system designed to solve problems and conserve energy. If you want to master your habits, you must first master this loop. You must learn to see the invisible wires that trigger your movements and the psychological hooks that keep you coming back for more. This chapter is about understanding the mechanics of that loop and introducing the 4 laws that allow you to hack it. The first stage of any habit is the cue. A cue is a bit of information that predicts a reward. It is the smell of coffee brewing as you walk into the kitchen, the buzz of your phone in your pocket, or the dim light of the television as you sit on the couch. Your ancestors relied on cues to survive. They scanned the environment for signs of water, food, or predators. In the modern world, we scan our environment for signs of dopamine. The cue triggers the second stage, the craving. The craving is the motivational force behind every habit. You don't crave the habit itself. You crave the change in state it provides. You don't crave the cigarette. You crave the feeling of relief it brings to your nervous system. You don't crave the act of scrolling through Instagram. You crave the hit of novelty that distracts you from your boredom. Once the craving is established, it leads to the response. The response is the actual habit you perform, the action of drinking the coffee, checking the phone, or smoking the cigarette. Whether or not a response occurs depends on how motivated you are and how much friction is associated with the behavior. If a behavior requires more physical or mental effort than you are willing to expend, you won't do it. This leads to the final stage, the reward. The reward is the end goal of every habit. It serves two purposes. First, it satisfies your craving, and second, it teaches your brain which actions are worth remembering in the future. If an action leads to a satisfying reward, your brain creates a neurological mental note. That felt good. Next time I see that cue, I should do that again. The 4 laws of behavior change are a set of simple rules we can use to build better habits and break bad ones. They are the manual for the habit loop. For the cue, the law is make it obvious. For the craving, the law is make it attractive. For the response, the law is make it easy. For the reward, the law is make it satisfying. Conversely, if you want to break a bad habit, you simply invert these laws. Make it invisible. Make it unattractive. Make it difficult. Make it unsatisfying. These laws are not just suggestions. They're the fundamental pillars of human psychology. When you align your life with these laws, you stop fighting against your biology and start using it to your advantage. You move from a state of constant struggle to a state of effortless flow. Imagine the friction that disappears when you stop relying on willpower and start relying on design. Most people fail because they try to build a habit by starting at the response phase. They say, I'm going to start running, but they ignore the cue, the craving, and the reward. They try to force the action through sheer grit. But grit is a limited resource. The master behavior doesn't rely on grit. They rely on the environment. They make the running shoes the most obvious thing in the room. They join a running group to make the habit attractive through social belonging. They set out their clothes the night before to make it easy. And they treat themselves to a delicious smoothie afterward to make it satisfying. They have built a system where the habit wants to happen. We often underestimate how much our behavior is influenced by the context of the room. Your brain is constantly mapping your environment and associating specific places with specific habits. This is why you find it easy to work in a library, but impossible to work in your bed. The library is a cue for focus. The bed is a cue for sleep. To build new habits, you must become a context architect. You must design your spaces so that the right cues are screaming for your attention and the wrong cues are hidden in the shadows. You don't need to be more disciplined. You just need to live in a more disciplined environment. This is the quiet power of the first law. By making the cue obvious, you are making the first step of the habit loop automatic. As we move deeper into this script, we are going to break down each of these laws in cinematic detail. We are going to show you how to manipulate the dopamine spikes of your cravings and how to use the law of least effort to make your hardest tasks feel like the path of least resistance. We're going to move past the what and the why and focus entirely on the how. You are learning to play the game of human behavior at a professional level. You are no longer just a leaf blowing in the wind of your impulses. You are the wind itself. You are learning the invisible mechanics of the mind so that you can finally build a life that is as intentional as it is impactful. The first and most critical law of behavior change is to make the cues of your good habits obvious. We often believe that we lack the motivation to change, but the reality is that we lack clarity. We live in a world of visual competition where every product, notification, and advertisement is fighting for a slice of our attention. If you want a habit to become a big part of your life, you must make the cue for that habit a big part of your environment. Most of our daily actions are triggered not by conscious choice, but by what we see in our immediate surroundings. You drink the soda because it is at a level in the refrigerator. You check your phone because it is sitting next to you on the desk. To master your behavior, you must stop being a victim of your surroundings and start being the architect of your visual field. Creating an obvious cue starts with a process called habit stacking. This is the art of tying a new habit to an existing one that is already firmly rooted in your daily routine. Instead of saying, I will meditate more, which is vague and lacks a trigger, you say, after I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. The act of pouring the coffee becomes a physical cue that pulls a new behavior into existence. You are essentially piggybacking on a neural pathway that your brain has already built. This creates a seamless transition from one task to the next, removing the need for a conscious decision. The more specific the trigger, the more likely the habit is to stick, because you have removed the friction of when and where the action should take place. Environment design is the most powerful tool in your arsenal because it bypasses the need for willpower. If you want to practice guitar more frequently, don't leave it in the closet. Put on a stand in the middle of your living room. If you want to eat more fruit, move the bowl from the bottom shelf of the pantry to the center of the kitchen counter. You are essentially leaving breadcrumbs for your future self to follow. By rearranging the physical space you inhabit, you are making the path of least resistance the path of highest growth. You are creating an environment where the right choice is the most obvious choice. This is not just about aesthetics. It is about cognitive efficiency. You are making your brain's job easier by highlighting the signals that lead to your goals. To truly make your cues obvious, you must first become aware of the ones that already exist. This is where the habit scorecard becomes essential. Most of our habits are so automatic that we no longer notice the triggers that set them off. We walk into the kitchen and open the pantry without thinking. We sit on the couch and reach for the remote by instinct. The habit scorecard forces you to list every single action you take in a typical day and label it as positive, negative, or neutral. By vocalizing these habits, literally saying out loud, I am about to check my email for no reason, you bring the behavior from the unconscious amygdala to the conscious prefrontal cortex. You are shining a light on the invisible architecture of your day, which is the first step toward redesigning it. The power of an obvious cue lies in its ability to spark a craving without requiring a single ounce of effort. When you see your gym bag sitting by the front door, you don't have to decide to go to the gym. The cue has already initiated the process. The visual signal does the heavy lifting for you. In this chapter, we are moving past the myth of the disciplined person. Truly disciplined people aren't better at resisting temptation. They are better at avoiding it. They design their lives so that they don't have to exercise self-control in the first place. By making your good habits obvious and your bad habits invisible, you are creating a life where success is no longer a struggle. It is a byproduct of the space you inhabit. Our brains are not just processing information, they are mapping the world. Every room you enter, every chair you sit in, and every corner of your home carries a psychological anchor. We often fail to build new habits because we try to perform them in spaces that are already anchored to old, conflicting behaviors. If you try to study at the kitchen table where you eat, or work from the bed where you sleep, you are inviting a neurological civil war. Your brain is receiving two sets of conflicting cues, one telling you to focus and another telling you to rest or consume. This creates a state of low-level mental friction that drains your willpower before you even begin the task. To make a habit truly obvious, you must give it a dedicated physical home. The one space, one use rule is the ultimate strategy for environmental clarity. When you designate a specific chair for reading, a specific desk for deep work, and a specific corner of the room for meditation, you are creating a Pavlovian response to the environment itself. Over time, simply sitting in that chair will trigger the craving to read. You won't need to psych yourself up because the geography of the room is doing the work for you. If you live in a small apartment and don't have separate rooms, you can create these zones through microenvironment cues, a specific lamp that you only turn on when you are writing, or a specific playlist that only plays when you are exercising, acts as a digital or visual anchor. You are essentially training your brain to associate a specific sensory experience with a specific output. This spatial anchoring is why it is so difficult to change your habits while staying in the same environment where those habits were formed. The walls themselves are shouting at you to return to your old ways. Every time you walk past a pantry, it whispers of the snacks you shouldn't have. Every time you see the television, it hums with the promise of a distraction. This is why many people find it easier to start a new habit when they go on vacation or move to a new house. In a new environment, you have a blank slate. There are no old anchors to pull you back. But you don't need to move across the country to find this freedom. You can find it by simply rearranging your current space. Moving your desk to a different wall or swapping the functions of 2 rooms can be enough to reset the visual cues and allow a new system to take root. We must also address the digital environment, which is where most of us spend the majority of our waking hours. Your smartphone is arguably the most cluttered and poorly designed environment in your life. It is a Swiss Army knife of distractions, with a cue for a productive work tool like a calendar sits right next to the cue for a dopamine trap like a social media feed. To make your digital habits obvious, you must apply the same architectural principles. Move all your distracting apps off your home screen. Put them in side folders on the 2nd or 3rd page. Better yet, delete them and only access them through a browser. Conversely, place the apps that lead to your goals, meditation, reading, or learning, front and center. You're creating a digital path of least resistance. The goal of making it obvious is to remove the thinking phase of the habit loop. The more you have to think about what to do next, the more opportunities your brain has to talk you out of it. When your environment is designed with precision, your day becomes a series of sliding doors that lead you toward your best self. You don't have to be a hero. You just have to be a designer. You are building a world that nudges you toward the person you wish to become, one obvious cue at a time. The mountain is steep, but with the right markers, the path is impossible to miss. We often walk through our lives believing that our choices are the result of our character, our willpower, or our internal drive. We tell ourselves that if we were just a little more disciplined, we would finally start that workout routine. Or if we were just more focused, we would finish that project. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of how human beings function. In reality, we are a product of the spaces we inhabit. Your environment is the invisible hand that shapes your behavior. It is the most powerful, yet most overlooked force in the science of habits. If you want to change your life, you must stop trying to change your mind and start changing your room. You are not a victim of your impulses. You are a builder who has forgotten they hold the blueprints. Consider the way a grocery store is designed. The most expensive items are placed at eye level because that is where your gaze naturally falls. The milk and eggs are tucked away in the back, so that you are forced to walk past aisles of processed snacks and colorful displays before you reach the essentials. The environment is nudging you to make specific choices before you even realize you're hungry. This is called choice architecture. Most of us are living in environments that have been architected by others, by advertisers who want our money, by social media companies that want our time, and by convenience stores that want our health. To reclaim your life, you must become the primary architect of your own surroundings. You must design for the person you want to become, not the person you're trying to leave behind. Environment design works because it reduces the number of decisions you have to make. Every decision you make during the day, from what to wear to what to eat for lunch, drains a tiny bit of your cognitive energy. By the time evening rolls around, your decision fatigue is so high that you default to the easiest possible option, which is usually a bad habit. A well-designed environment removes the need for decisions. If your workout clothes are laid out on your bed, the decision to exercise has already been made for you. If the healthy snacks are at eye level and the junk food is on a high shelf in an opaque container, the decision to eat well becomes a path of least resistance. You are essentially preloading your success by making the right choice the most obvious one. We must also understand the concept of friction. Friction is the invisible force that makes a habit harder to perform. If you want to stop a bad habit, you must add friction. If you want to stop watching so much television, don't just try to watch less. Unplug the TV after every use. Remove the batteries from the remote and put them in a drawer in another room. This creates a few seconds of mandatory thinking time between the impulse to watch and the act of watching. Often, those few seconds are all you need for your rational mind to take back control. Conversely, to build a good habit, you must remove friction. If you want to write every morning, set up your laptop and open the document the night before. Your goal is to make the start of the habit take less than 2 minutes. This architectural approach shifts the focus from beating yourself into submission to designing yourself into flow. You stop asking, how can I be more disciplined? And start asking, how can I make this easier? You realize that the people who seem to have incredible self-control are often just the ones who have designed their environments so that they rarely have to use it. They don't have cookies on the counter, so they don't have to resist eating them. They don't have their phones in the bedroom, so they don't have to resist scrolling at midnight. They have won the battle before it even started. This is the ultimate secret of the first law. You don't need to be a hero when you are the architect. Your environment is also a reflection of your social identity. We are profoundly influenced by the cues of the crowd. If everyone in your office keeps a bowl of candy on their desk, you will likely do the same. If everyone in your friend group spends their weekend hiking, you will find it natural to join them. To make your habit stick, you must find a way to align your environment with your tribe. Join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. When you are in an environment where everyone is striving for the same thing, the friction of being different disappears. You are no longer swimming against the current. You are part of the tide. As you move through your home today, look at it through the eyes of a behavior scientist. Look at every surface, every drawer, and every screen. Ask yourself, is this space nudging me toward my goals or away from them? Is this room designed to the person I was 5 years ago or the person I am becoming? Don't be afraid to move the furniture, hide the remotes, or clear the counters. You are not just cleaning your house. You are clearing the path for your future self. The mountain is easier to climb when the terrain is working with you. Become the architect of your own atmosphere, and watch how quickly the hard things become your new, effortless normal. To master the second law of behavior change, we must descend into the chemical engine of the human brain. We like to believe that we are rational beings driven by logic and long-term goals. But at our core, we are biological machines fueled by dopamine. It is a common misconception that dopamine is a chemical of pleasure. In reality, it is a chemical of desire, anticipation, and motivation. It is a spike of energy you feel when you smell wood-fired pizza, the rush of blood when you see a notification on your phone, or the sudden focus that takes hold when you think about a potential promotion. Dopamine is what makes a habit attractive. It is not the hit of the reward that keeps you coming back. It is a craving that precedes it. To build habits that last, you must learn to manipulate this dopamine-driven feedback loop to make your desired behaviors irresistible. Consider the temptation bundling strategy. This is the art of linking an action you want to do with an action you need to do. It is a way of hijacking your brain's natural craving for a high dopamine activity and using it as a reward for a low dopamine productive habit. If you love watching a particular show on Netflix but find it impossible to get yourself to the gym, you create a rule. You only watch that show while you are on the treadmill. Suddenly, the anticipation of the story, the dopamine spike, is tied to the physical effort of the workout. You are using the attraction of the entertainment to pull you through the friction of the exercise. You are no longer fighting your cravings. You're using them as a tow rope to pull your life forward. This law is deeply rooted in our evolutionary history. Our ancestors lived in a world of scarcity, where finding a high-calorie food source or a safe social group meant the difference between life and death. Their brains evolved to provide a massive dopamine reward for anything that increased their chances of survival. In the modern world, we live in an environment of supernormal stimuli. Advertisers, food scientists, and software engineers have spent billions of dollars to create products that are more attractive than anything nature could provide. They have engineered the perfect crunch of a potato chip and the perfect variable reward of a social media feed to keep our dopamine levels in a state of permanent agitation. To compete with these hyper-attractive bad habits, we must become the engineers of our own attractions. We must also recognize that human beings are profoundly motivated by the need for social belonging. We are tribal creatures, and for most of our history, being cast out of the tribe meant certain death. Because of this, we have a deep-seated desire to imitate the habits of 3 specific groups: the close, the many, and the powerful. We imitate the habits of our family and friends, the close, the habits of the larger culture, the many, and the habits of those who have status and prestige, the powerful. If you want to make a habit attractive, you should join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. When you are surrounded by people who read every day or who prioritize their physical health, the social reward of fitting in becomes the primary driver of your habit. It is no longer an individual struggle. It is a shared identity. One of the most powerful ways to make a habit attractive is to reframe your internal monologue. Most people talk about their habits as a series of burdens. They say, I have to wake up early for work, or I have to make dinner for the family. The word have implies that these actions are a chore, a drain on your energy. By simply changing one word, you can shift the entire emotional weight of the task. Change, I have to I get to. I get to wake up early and have a quiet house before the day starts. I get to cook a meal that nourishes the people I love. This simple linguistic shift changes a habit from an obligation into an opportunity. It highlights the benefit rather than the sacrifice, making behavior instantly more attractive to your subconscious mind. We must also learn to create a motivation ritual. This is a way of associating a difficult habit with something you deeply enjoy. If you always take 3 deep breaths and smile before you start a difficult work task, over time, that physical sensation of relaxation will become a cue that makes the work feel more attractive. You are essentially training your brain to associate the effort with a positive state of being. You are creating a Pavlovian response to your own productivity. This is not about lying to yourself. It is about choosing which parts of the experience to focus on. Every habit has a cost and a benefit. By intentionally shining a light on the benefit, you are making the attraction stronger than the resistance. The second law reminds us that we do not live in a vacuum. We are constantly being pulled by the gravity of our desires and the expectations of our peers. By making your good habits attractive, you are no longer trying to force yourself to be a better person. You are simply following the path of what feels good, what feels right, and what feels like it belongs. You are using the brain's ancient reward system to build a modern life of purpose and impact. The mountain is no longer a grueling climb. It is a journey toward a destination that you genuinely want to reach. Make the habit attractive, and the rest of the loop will follow. No man is an island, and no habit is formed in a vacuum. We like to believe that our choices are the result of our independent willpower, but we are, at our core, tribal animals deeply attuned to behaviors of those around us. We are social chameleons, constantly and unconsciously adjusting our colors to match the environment we inhabit. This is the quiet power of social gravity. We don't just pick up habits because they are useful. We pick them up because they are the ticket to belonging. In the ancient world, being cast out of the tribe meant certain death. So our brains evolved to prioritize social conformity over almost everything else. Today, that same ancient drive dictates whether you pick up a book or a remote, whether you choose a salad or a burger, and whether you spend your mornings at the gym or in bed. To master your habits, you must understand the 3 groups of people we are most likely to imitate: the close, the many, and the powerful. The first group, the close, refers to those in our immediate circle, our family, our roommates, and our closest friends. If everyone in your house eats junk food while watching late-night television, you'll find it nearly impossible to maintain a strict diet. The friction of being the different one is often too much for the human spirit to bear. Conversely, if you live with someone who wakes up at dawn to write, that behavior becomes the invisible baseline for your day. You don't need a lecture on productivity. You simply breathe in the atmosphere of their discipline. To change your life, you must often begin by looking at the people who share your table. The second group we imitate is the many, the broader culture, or the crowd. We look to the behavior of the majority to determine what is normal. If you walk into a library and everyone is whispering, you will lower your voice without being asked. If you join a workplace where everyone stays late to finish their projects, you will feel a psychological pull to do the same. Even if your work is complete, the desire to fit in is a powerful motivational force. This is why one of the most effective ways to build a good habit is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. If you want to become a reader, join a book club. If you want to become a runner, join a local track team. When you are surrounded by people who are already doing what you want to do, the habit stops being a chore and starts being a way of belonging. The third group is powerful, those we perceive to have high status, prestige, or success. We are naturally drawn to the habits of the people we admire because we believe that by imitating their actions, we might also attain their results. We buy the same shoes as our favorite athletes and read the same books as the world's most successful entrepreneurs. This is why prestige is such a powerful tool for habit formation. When a habit is associated with status, it becomes incredibly attractive. You are no longer just performing an action. You are performing an identity that you hope will lead to a better life. By intentionally choosing role models who embody the habits you want to build, you can use your natural drive for status as a tow rope to pull yourself up the mountain. The ultimate challenge of the social law is that we often choose to be wrong with the crowd rather than right by ourselves. The pain of social exclusion is so great that we will often stick to a bad habit just to stay in the good graces of our group. This is the tribe trap. To break free, you must be willing to endure the temporary discomfort of being an outsider. You must realize that you are not just changing your habits. You are potentially changing your tribe. This is not about being cold or abandoning people. It is about realizing that your environment will always be stronger than your willpower. If you want to reach the summit, you cannot spend all your time with people who are content to stay in the valley. This chapter is a call to audit your social environment. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are their habits the ones you want to have in 5 years? Do they celebrate your growth? Or do they subtly pull you back to the old you because your change makes them uncomfortable? You don't have to be a hermit, but you do have to be a curator. Seek out the cultures and the individuals who make your desired habits feel like the path of least resistance. When your social world is aligned with your personal goals, the climb becomes effortless. You are no longer fighting the gravity of the crowd. You are being carried by it. We often live under the collective delusion that greatness requires a Herculean struggle. We believe that if we aren't grit-ing our teeth, sweating through our clothes, and battling our own exhaustion, then the work we're doing isn't valuable. We have romanticized the grind to the point where we view ease as a sign of weakness. But the biology of the human brain tells a different story. Every living organism is governed by the law of least effort. Whether it is a river carving a path through a canyon or a lion hunting on the savannah, nature always moves toward the path of least resistance. Your brain is no different. It is an energy-conserving machine. If you want to build a habit that lasts, you must stop trying to fight your nature and start using it. You must make your good habits so easy that it is harder not to do them than it is to do them. The secret to mastering the third law is not in the strength of your willpower, but in the reduction of friction. Friction is the invisible barrier between you and the person you want to become. It is the 3 extra steps it takes to get your gym shoes out of the back of the closet. It is the slow internet connection that makes you give up on your research. It is a cluttered kitchen counter that makes you order takeout instead of cooking. We think these things are trivial, but in the aggregate, they are the primary reasons we fail. Every time you remove a single point of friction, you are making a habit more inevitable. You are not trying harder. You are designing smarter. You are smoothing the road so that your momentum carries you forward without needing a constant engine of motivation. One of the most powerful strategies for making it easy is the 2-minute rule. The premise is simple. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Most of us fail because we try to start at the finish line. We decide to start exercising, and we try to do an hour of high-intensity training on day 1. We decide to start reading, and we try to finish a chapter every night. This is too much friction for a new neural pathway. Instead, you should scale the habit down to its atomic entry point. Exercise becomes put on my running shoes. Read becomes read 1 page. Meditate becomes sit down and close my eyes. The goal is not to achieve the result in those 2 minutes. The goal is simply to show up. You have to master the habit of showing up before the habit can be optimized. Once you start, it is much easier to keep going. This is the physics of behavior. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. The 2-minute rule works because it bypasses the starting friction, the moment of maximum resistance where your brain tries to talk you out of the work. If the task is to just put on your shoes, your brain doesn't feel threatened. It doesn't trigger the alarm system. And once the shoes are on, you think, well, I'm already dressed, I might as well walk around the block. By making the beginning easy, you are tricking your biology into moving toward your goals. You are focusing on the gateway behavior that leads to productive state. You are becoming a person who doesn't miss the start, and that is 90% of the battle. Another essential technique is environment priming. This is the act of preparing your surroundings so that the next action is effortless. We often think of cleaning up as an act of looking back, fixing a mess from the past. But highly effective habit builders think of resetting the room as an act of looking forward. When you clear your desk at the end of the day, you aren't just cleaning. You are priming the environment so that when you sit down tomorrow morning, there is zero friction between you and your work. When you chop vegetables for the week on Sunday, you are priming your kitchen so that a healthy dinner is a path of least resistance on a tired Tuesday night. You are doing the hard work now so that your future self can move with the ease of a master. We must also confront the motion versus action trap. Many of us spend our lives in motion. We are researching, planning, and learning. Motion feels like progress, but it never produces a result on its own. Action is a behavior that actually yields the outcome. You can research the best workout routine for 100 hours motion, but you won't get fit until you actually lift a weight action. We often stay in motion because it is easy in a way that doesn't risk failure. It allows us to feel like we are working without the discomfort of actually doing. To make it easy, you must shift from motion to action as quickly as possible. Stop overplanning the mountain and start taking the first 2-minute step. The third law is an invitation to be kind to your future self. It is the realization that you are not a robot, and your energy will fluctuate. On the days when you are tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, your system is the only thing that will save you. By making your habits easy, you ensure that you can maintain your trajectory even on your worst days. You are building a life of marginal gains, where the path to success is not a vertical wall, but a gentle, paved ramp. You don't need more grit. You just need a better design. Make it easy, and you will find that the person you always wanted to be has been waiting just on the other side of the friction. When we think about improving our lives, our natural instinct is to think about what we can add. We look for new gadgets, new supplements, or new planners, believing that the right addition will finally unlock our potential. But in the architecture of habits, the most powerful move is often subtraction. This is the art of removing the hidden weights that are slowing you down. Think of your life as a garden hose with a kink in it. You can turn the water pressure up as high as you want addition, but the water will still only trickle out. If you simply remove the kink, subtraction, the water flows effortlessly without any extra pressure. Most of us are trying to force our way through the kinks in our daily routines. We are trying to overcome friction with willpower, rather than simply removing the friction itself. The geometry of your living space dictates the frequency of your habits. We are profoundly influenced by the convenience curve. If a behavior is even slightly more convenient, we are exponentially more likely to do it. If a behavior is slightly inconvenient, we are exponentially less likely to do it. This is why the most successful habit builders are friction hunters. They look for the tiny 5-second delays that cause them to hesitate. If you want to stop eating junk food, don't just put it in the pantry. Put it in the basement inside a box that requires a key. That 60-second walk to the basement provides a massive inconvenience barrier that gives your rational mind time to intervene. By adding just a small amount of physical distance or complexity to a bad habit, you can effectively delete it from your life. This principle also applies to our digital lives, where the geometry is defined by the number of clicks. Tech companies spend millions of dollars to reduce click friction. They want you to be able to buy a product or watch a video with a single tap because they know that every extra second of thought is a chance for you to leave. You must use the same logic against them. If you want to stop wasting time on social media, log out after every session. This adds a friction of re-entering your password and two-factor authentication every time you want to scroll. Usually, the sheer effort of logging in is enough to make you realize that you didn't actually want to check the app. You were just bored for a split second. You are using the law of least effort as a shield to protect your time. We must also recognize the power of the point of no return. This is a moment where a single choice locks in a long-term behavior. When you sign up for a healthy meal delivery service, you have made one decision that removes the friction of choosing what to eat for the next 30 days. When you move into a neighborhood with a high walkability score, you have made one decision that makes daily movement inevitable. These are one-time actions that automate your future success. Instead of fighting 100 small battles every week, you win one big battle that reshapes the terrain. You are using the geography of your life to automate your character. Ultimately, making it easy is about respect. Respect the fact that you are a human being with limited energy. You shouldn't have to be a superhero just to get through your day. By smoothing the path, you are allowing your natural energy to carry you toward the things that matter. You are building a life of graceful momentum. You are no longer dragging yourself up the mountain. You have built a world where the mountain itself is pulling you upward. The path of least resistance has finally become the path of your greatest self. The first 3 laws, making it obvious, attractive, and easy, increase the odds that you will perform a behavior this time. But the 4th law, making it satisfying, is the only reason you will repeat the behavior next time. This is a cardinal rule of behavior change. What is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. Our brains did not evolve to seek long-term goals. They evolved to seek immediate satisfaction. In the ancestral environment, the future was uncertain, so the brain prioritized the now over the later. This creates a fundamental disconnect in the modern world. Most good habits have a delayed reward, the health from a workout or the wealth from saving. Most bad habits have an immediate reward, the sugar from a donut or the distraction of a screen. To master your life, you must learn to close this gap by adding a small bit of immediate pleasure to your good habits. The human brain is a master of time discounting. We value the present version of ourselves far more than the future version. The person who wants to be fit is a future stranger. The person who wants a pizza is right here, right now. To bridge this divide, you must use reinforcement. This is the act of tying your long-term habit to an immediate short-term win. If you're trying to save money, you might set up a travel fund and transfer $5 into it every time you skip a luxury purchase. The physical act of seeing the money move into a fund for something you desire provides a hit of satisfaction that your brain needs to feel that the sacrifice was worth it. You are providing a bribe for your own biology. You are giving yourself a reason to stay on the path today so that the results can manifest tomorrow. One of the most effective tools for making a habit satisfying is the habit tracker. There is a primal, visceral pleasure in crossing an item off a list or putting an X on a calendar. This is the don't break the chain method. When you track your progress, the act of tracking itself becomes a reward. It provides visual evidence that you are casting votes for your new identity. It turns the mundane repetition of a habit into a game where the goal is simply to keep the streak alive. Tracking also acts as a visual cue for the next day, making a habit more obvious. But its primary power lies in the satisfaction of seeing your progress accumulate. You aren't just working. You are building a mountain of evidence that you are becoming the person you want to be. However, we must also address the inevitable, the day you fail. Life is unpredictable, and eventually a streak will be broken. This is where the mantra, never miss twice, becomes your most important safety net. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. The most successful people are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who recover the fastest. When you miss a day, the satisfaction comes from the act of returning. You prove to yourself that your system is stronger than your circumstances. By getting back on track immediately, you prevent the all-or-nothing mentality from sabotaging your long-term trajectory. You realize that the goal isn't perfection. It's the majority of the votes. Satisfying habits are those that align with your natural inclinations. We often try to force ourselves into habits that the world tells us are good, but that we personally find miserable. If you hate the gym, don't try to make going to the gym satisfying. Find a different way to move that you actually enjoy, like rock climbing or dancing. When a habit is naturally aligned with your personality and your strengths, the reward is built into the activity itself. You don't need an external bribe because the work feels like play. This is the Goldilocks rule. Finding tasks that are not too hard, not too easy, but just right. When you are in that sweet spot of challenge, the satisfaction is a natural byproduct of the flow state. Ultimately, making it satisfying is about changing the emotional flavor of your discipline. You stop seeing your habits as a form of self-punishment and start seeing them as a form of self-care. You are no longer denying yourself a bad habit. You are granting yourself a better life. When you reach the end of the day and you can look at your tracker and see that you stayed true to your systems, that quiet sense of pride is the ultimate reward. It is a feeling of being in control of your own destiny. It is the knowledge that you are no longer a leaf blowing the wind, but the wind itself. Make it satisfying, and the mountain stops being a climb. It becomes your home. While the act of tracking a habit provides the immediate satisfaction necessary to keep the loop running, we must also be wary of the moment the metric becomes more important than the behavior it was meant to measure. This is known as Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. We see this in the person who becomes so obsessed with hitting 10,000 steps that they pace around their bedroom at midnight, sacrificing sleep, a fundamental pillar of health, just to keep a digital streak alive. They have won the game of the tracker, but lost the war for their well-being. To master the fourth law, you must maintain a healthy detachment from the numbers. The tracker is a compass, not the destination. If you find yourself performing a habit just to check a box, you have entered the world of hollow discipline, and the satisfaction you feel will eventually turn into resentment. The satisfaction of a habit should ideally transition from an external reward to an internal state. In the beginning, you might need the X on the calendar or the $5 in the travel fund to keep you motivated. But as the identity shift we discussed in Chapter 2 takes hold, the reward must become the work itself. This is a transition from doing to being. A writer eventually finds more satisfaction in the perfect turn of phrase than in the word count at the bottom of the page. An athlete finds more joy in the rhythm of their breathing than in the numbers on the stopwatch. If you remain addicted to the external reward forever, the habit will always feel like a performance. You must eventually let them tracker numbers be what they are, and focus instead on the quiet pride of being someone who simply shows up. We must also understand the variable reward engine, which is the secret sauce behind the most addictive habits in the world, from gambling to social media. When a reward is unpredictable, when you don't know if the next pull of the slot machine or the next scroll of the feed will yield a win, your dopamine levels spike to incredible heights. You can use the same biological trick to make your good habits more satisfying. Instead of a fixed reward, introduce a bit of variety. If you complete your deep work for the week, treat yourself to a random mystery reward that you've pre-selected. The element of surprise keeps the brain engaged and prevents a habit from becoming a dull routine. You are essentially gamifying your growth, turning the climb into a series of unexpected breakthroughs. As the habit becomes automatic, a new danger arises, the plateau of boredom. When you first start a habit, every day feels like a victory because the learning curve is steep. But once you become proficient, the gains become marginal and the novelty wears off. This is where most people fail, not because a habit is hard, but because it is no longer exciting. Mastery requires you to fall in love with boredom. It is the ability to keep doing the same thing over and over again, even when the satisfaction is no longer a loud explosion, but a soft hum. You have to find a way to stay curious about the nuances of your practice. You have to look for the 1% improvements in your technique, even when you're already in the top 10% of your field. This leads us to the final evolution of the habit loop, the integration of habits into a larger system of mastery. A single habit is an atom, but mastery is the entire molecule. You don't just want a collection of good behaviors. You want a life that is architected for excellence. This requires a regular system audit. Every few months, you must step back and ask, are these habits still serving the person I am becoming, or am I just repeating them out of tradition? Sometimes, a habit that was once satisfying becomes a limitation. To stay on the path of growth, you must be willing to dismantle old systems to make room for new ones. You are the gardener of your own life, and sometimes the most satisfying thing you can do is prune the branches that are no longer bearing fruit. Ultimately, the fourth law is about the reclamation of joy. We live in a society that treats discipline as a form of misery, but true discipline is the highest form of self-love. It is a decision to give your future self a gift rather than a debt. When you make your habit satisfying, you are proving to yourself that you are worth the effort. You are creating a life where the hard path is also the most beautiful path. The mountain is no longer an obstacle to be overcome. It is a landscape of your liberation. You have designed the cues, you have sparked the cravings, you have smoothed the response, and now you are savoring the reward. You are no longer just building habits. You are building a masterpiece. One of the most insidious threats to the satisfaction of a habit is the poison of perfectionism. We often enter into a new system with a vision of flawless execution. We imagine ourselves as a person who never misses a day, who never falters in their discipline, and who maintains an unbroken string of victories until the goal is reached. But this rigid expectation is the opposite of a satisfying life. When you demand perfection, you turn every minor slip-up into a catastrophic failure. If you miss a single workout, the satisfaction of the previous 20 days is instantly erased by the shame of the present moment. To make your habits truly satisfying over the long term, you must learn to replace the desire for perfection with the desire for persistence. You must find satisfaction not in being perfect, but in being the person who always finds their way back to the path. The satisfaction of a habit should be rooted in the act of showing up, not in the quality of performance on any given day. There will be days when your workout is sluggish, your writing is uninspired, and your meditation is filled with distracting thoughts. On these days, the outcome is poor, but the identity vote is still powerful. In fact, the satisfaction on a bad day should be even higher than on a good day. Anyone can go to the gym when they feel energetic and motivated, but the person who goes when they're tired, busy, or uninspired is the one who is truly building a new identity. The reward on those days is the knowledge that your system is stronger than your moods. You are finding satisfaction in the grit of the process rather than the shine of the result. This is where the identity audit becomes a source of deep internal satisfaction. At the end of each week, instead of just looking at the numbers on your tracker, look at the evidence of the person you are becoming. The satisfaction comes from the realization that you are no longer the person who makes excuses. You are the person who makes progress. This internal validation is far more durable than any external praise. It is a quiet confidence that radiates through your entire life. You start to trust yourself more. You know that when you say you're going to do something, you will actually do it. This self-trust is the ultimate reward of the fourth law. It is the peace of mind that comes from being in total alignment with your own word. We must also consider the social reinforcement of our rewards. While internal satisfaction is the goal, human beings are inherently social creatures who thrive on the recognition of their peers. You can make a habit more satisfying by creating a shared success loop. When you share your progress with a mentor, a friend, or a community that values your growth, their encouragement acts as a secondary reward. This isn't about seeking hollow likes on social media. It's about the deep satisfaction of being seen and respected by people whose opinions you value. When your tribe celebrates your discipline, the habit becomes anchored to your social status. You aren't just improving yourself. You are elevating your position within the group you love. As you move toward mastery, you'll find that the reward of a habit eventually becomes the freedom it provides. In the beginning, a habit feels like a constraint, a rule you have to follow. But once it becomes automatic, it becomes a liberation. The habit of saving money provides a freedom to walk away from a toxic job. The habit of physical fitness provides a freedom to say yes to adventures. The habit of deep work provides a freedom to spend your evenings in total presence with your family. This is the ultimate satisfaction of the atomic habits philosophy. You are not building a cage of routines. You are building a platform of freedom. You are doing the work today so that your future self can live a life without limits. The fourth law is the glue that holds the entire system together. Without satisfaction, the cue will eventually be ignored, the craving will fade, and the response will become too much effort to maintain. But with a well-designed reward system, the habit loop becomes a self-sustaining engine of transformation. You are no longer trying to change. You are simply living the most satisfying version of your life. You have turned the mountain into a staircase, and every step you take provides the energy for next. The journey is no longer a burden. It is a blessing. You are the master of the loop, the architect of the atmosphere, and the owner of your own destiny. You are finally, beautifully, home. Once you have mastered the four laws of behavior change, you reach a new frontier in your development. You have moved past the initial struggle of starting a habit, and you have moved past the valley of disappointment. Now, you face a different kind of challenge, the challenge of optimization. This is where the difference between the amateur and the professional becomes clear. The amateur waits for motivation to strike. The professional understands that mastery is a game of managing energy and challenge. To stay at the top of your game, you must learn to navigate the Goldilocks rule. This rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, but just right. Think of a game of tennis. If you play against a professional, you will quickly become frustrated because the challenge is too high. You can't even return a serve, and your brain shuts down. If you play against a small child, you will quickly become bored because the challenge is too low. There is no mystery or growth in exchange. But if you play against someone who is exactly at your level or just slightly better, you enter a state of flow. Every point is a struggle. Every move is an opportunity to learn, and the time seems to disappear. This is the sweet spot of habit maintenance. To keep a habit satisfying for years, you must constantly find ways to nudge the challenge level upward just enough to stay in that flow channel. You have to keep the game interesting, to keep the mind engaged. However, even with the perfect level of challenge, you will eventually encounter the greatest threat to success: boredom. We are often told that the secret to success is passion, but the truth is that success is the ability to handle the absence of passion. Every professional athlete, every master musician, and every successful CEO has days when they absolutely do not want to do the work. The work has become repetitive, the novelty has evaporated, and the rewards feel distant. The difference is that they show up anyway. They have learned to fall in love with boredom. They understand that the work is not the exciting breakthrough. The work is the thousands of mundane repetitions that make the breakthrough possible. You must learn to be the person who can endure the quiet, unglamorous middle of the journey. Mastery also requires you to understand the downside of good habits. Habits are the foundation of performance because they make actions automatic, allowing your conscious mind to focus on other things. But the danger of automation is that you stop paying attention to the details. You start to perform the habit well enough rather than at your best. This is how bad form creeps into a workout or how complacency creeps into a relationship. To combat this, you must introduce a system of reflection and review. You must step back from your habits periodically to audit your performance. You have to consciously re-engage with the mechanics of the behavior to ensure that your automatic level is still a level of excellence. This constant cycle of habit formation followed by deliberate practice is the path to true mastery. You build a habit until it is automatic, and then you use that saved mental energy to focus on the next level of skill. You are essentially building a ladder, where each rung is a habit that you have mastered. But you cannot climb the ladder if you aren't willing to look down and check the stability of the rungs you've already passed. This is the continuous improvement mindset. It is the realization that you are never finished. Success is not a destination you reach and then inhabit. It is a state of being that you must re-earn every single day through the tiny, atomic choices of your life. Most people believe that once a habit is formed, the work is done. They think of a habit as a destination, a box to be checked off, so they can move on to the next problem. But this is where the most dangerous form of stagnation begins. When a habit becomes automatic, it also becomes unconscious. You stop thinking about the how, and because you stop thinking, you stop improving. This is the peril of the autopilot. You might be going through motions every day, but if you aren't paying attention, your form begins to slip, your enthusiasm wanes, and you eventually hit a ceiling that you cannot break through. To achieve results that last not just for weeks, but for decades, you must introduce the practice of reflection and review. Reflection and review act as a corrective lens for your life. It is the moment where you step out of the doing and into the observing. Think of a professional athlete who watches game film. They aren't just looking at the score. They're looking at the tiny, fractional errors in their footwork or their timing. They are looking for the 1% of their performance that is starting to decay. You must do the same with your daily routines. Whether it is a weekly review of your finances, a monthly audit of your physical health, or a yearly reflection on your career trajectory, these checkpoints are what prevent you from drifting off course. You are essentially recalibrating your compass. Without this, you are just a traveler walking in circles, convinced that because your legs are moving, you must be making progress. This practice also protects you from the trap of a rigid identity. As we discussed earlier, identity is the most powerful driver of behavior. but it can also become a cage. If you define yourself too strictly, I am the CEO who never sleeps, or I am the athlete who never misses a day, you become brittle. When life inevitably changes, or when your body can no longer sustain that pace, a rigid identity will cause you to break rather than bend. Reflection allows you to keep your identity fluid. It gives you the permission to say, that habit served the person I was last year, but it no longer serves the person I am today. You are the master of the habit, not its slave. By reviewing your life regularly, you ensure that your habits are tools for your liberation, not chains that bind you to a past version of yourself. The most effective way to implement this is through a half-yearly review. Every 6 months, take a day to go through your habit tracker and your journals. Ask yourself 3 simple but devastatingly honest questions. What went well this period? What didn't go so well? And what did I learn? This isn't about self-criticism or shame. It is about data. You are a scientist studying the most important experiment in the world, your own life. You are looking for patterns. You might notice that you always fall off your diet during weeks when you have late meetings, or that your creativity spikes when you spend more time outdoors. Once you have the data, you can redesign the environment and the cues to account for these realities. You are moving from a state of hoping for success to a state of engineering it. As you move through this process, you will discover that the true secret to lasting results is not a single massive transformation, but an endless cycle of refinement. You are like a sculptor working on a block of marble. You don't create the statue with one strike of the hammer. You create it by slowly chipping away everything that isn't the statue. Your habits are the hammer, and your reflection is the eye that tells you where to strike next. This is atomic lifestyle in its purest form. It is the quiet, relentless pursuit of a slightly better version of yourself. You aren't looking for a finish line because you have realized that the joy is in the carving. You have fallen in love with the process of becoming, and because of that, your results will never truly end. They will only continue to compound, building a legacy that is as unshakable as the mountain itself. We must confront the reality that we are building our habits in an environment that our ancestors could never have imagined. We are the first generation of humans to live with a slot machine in our pockets. The digital world is not a neutral space. It is a landscape specifically engineered to hijack the 4 laws of behavior change for the benefit of algorithms rather than individuals. In this digital age, the cues are constant and invasive, designed as vibrant red notifications that trigger an immediate, primitive craving for social validation or novelty. The response, a simple swipe or tap, is made so effortless that we often find ourselves scrolling before we even realize we have picked up a device. And the reward is a variable stream of dopamine that keeps us hooked in a loop of infinite distraction. To live intentionally today, you must apply the atomic habits philosophy to your digital life with a level of ruthlessness that wasn't necessary 10 years ago. The digital environment is the ultimate test of environment design. If you do not curate your digital space, the engineers in Silicon Valley will curate it for you, and their goals are rarely aligned with your growth. You must treat your home screen like a sacred sanctuary. If an app does not cast a vote for the person you want to become, it should not have a place on your front page. We are seeing a new form of digital decay where the 1% compound interest works against us. 1% more distraction every day, 1% less focus, 1% more comparison. Over a year, this leads to a complete erosion of the self. Modern mastery requires you to build digital moats. You must create friction where there is currently none, such as using app blockers or grayscale modes, to protect the most valuable resource you own, your attention. Furthermore, the identity layer of behavior change has been complicated by the social mirror of the internet. We are no longer just comparing ourselves to our neighbors. We are comparing our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. This creates a false sense of what progress looks like, making the plateau of latent potential feel even more agonizing. When you see others achieving seemingly overnight success online, your own small, atomic gains can feel insignificant. But you must remember that the digital world is a curated fiction. The math of compounding has not changed. The quiet work you do in the dark, away from the screen, is the only thing that will yield a result that is real and unshakable. In the digital age, The most radical act you can perform is to stay consistent with a boring, offline habit. As we reach the final notes of the cinematic journey through the world of James Clear's work, we must return to the most fundamental truth. The mountain is never truly finished. There is no final summit where you can sit down and stop growing. The secret to results that last is to realize that the goal was never to arrive at a destination, but to fall in love with the person you become along the way. Your habits are the threads with which you weave the tapestry of your life. Every morning you wake up, every time you choose a harder path of growth over the easy path of stagnation, you are performing an act of self-creation. You are the architect, the builder, and the resident of your own character. The beauty of the atomic approach is that it removes the weight of perfection from your shoulders. You don't have to be a hero today. You just have to be 1% better. You don't have to change your entire life in an hour. You just have to change the next 2 minutes. This philosophy is an invitation to a life of grace and persistence. It is a reminder that you are allowed to be a work in progress. When you look back at where you started, you won't remember the individual workouts or the specific pages read. You will see a transformation that happened so slowly it felt like nothing was changing at all, until one day, everything was different. You have crossed the threshold. You have melted the ice. Take a deep breath and feel the weight of the potential energy you have stored within you. You now possess the blueprints for the human mind. You know how to make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. You know how to pivot when you fail, and how to review when you succeed. The world will try to pull you back into the chaos of the crowd, but you carry the stillness of the system within you. You are no longer waiting for a miracle. You are the miracle, built one small habit at a time. The mountain is calling. The path is clear, and the first step is only 2 minutes away. Go out and cast your first vote. Your future self is waiting, and they are beautiful.